Here is a number worth sitting with for a moment. The average American home currently sells for around $420,000. At a standard 6% real estate commission, the total agent fees on that transaction are $25,200. That money comes out of the seller's proceeds at closing. It gets split, traditionally 3% to the seller's agent and 3% to the buyer's agent. And in most cases, the entire thing is over in about 25 days of actual active work, often less. $25,000 for 25 days. On a transaction the seller initiated, the buyer found online, and a title company processed. Now compare that to every other country on earth. In the United Kingdom, agent commissions average 1 to 1.5%. In Australia, 2 to 2.5%. In the Netherlands, around 1%. Germany, under 2%. The United States, at 5 to 6%, has the highest residential real estate commissions of any developed country in the world. Not by a little. By a factor of 3 to 6 times. And unlike the pharmaceutical pricing problem or the student loan problem, this one doesn't even have the cover story of innovation costs or R&D risk. It's just a number. A remarkably durable, remarkably high number that has persisted for half a century, while the actual work of selling a home got exponentially easier. Here's the thing. In 1970, selling a house was genuinely complicated. Agents had exclusive access to listings through the multiple listing service, a private database of available properties that no consumer could access directly. Finding a home meant going through an agent. Pricing a home meant going through an agent. Understanding comparable sales meant going through an agent. The information asymmetry was real, the service was real, and a 6% commission was at least an arguable price for genuine expertise and access. Then the internet happened. Zillow launched in 2006. Redfin in 2004. Realtor.com existed before both of them. Suddenly, every buyer in America could search every available listing, see the listing photos, check comparable sales, view price history, and estimate a property's value, all from a couch in pajamas before their morning coffee. The information asymmetry that justified the 6% commission evaporated almost overnight. The commission stayed, because the commission was never really about information. It was about access. And access was controlled by a system that was, to put it gently, not designed with the consumer's wallet as a priority. Let's get into the mechanism, because this is where the comfortable story completely unravels. The National Association of Realtors, the NAR, is the largest trade association in the United States, with roughly 1.5 million members. For decades, the NAR and its affiliated MLS systems operated under a rule that required sellers listing on the MLS, which is essentially the only meaningful way to sell a home in most markets, to offer a commission to the buyer's agent as a condition of the listing. Not a negotiable courtesy. A required offer. Embedded in the listing. Visible to every buyer's agent before they decide which homes to show their clients. Think about what that incentive structure produces. A buyer's agent is legally representing the buyer's interests, but the buyer's agent is being paid by the seller, out of a commission pool that was set before the buyer was ever involved. And the commission the buyer's agent receives is directly tied to the sale price of the home. Higher sale price equals higher commission. The agent whose fiduciary duty is to get you the lowest possible price is financially incentivized to get you the highest possible price. That is not a subtle conflict of interest. That is a structural misalignment so obvious that every other industry calls it fraud and only real estate calls it standard practice. And it gets more specific than that. Because buyer's agents could see the offered commission on each listing. A listing offering 2.5% buyer agent commission and a listing offering 3% buyer agent commission are both available to show. Which one do you think got shown more? A 2019 academic study found statistically significant evidence that homes offering higher buyer agent commissions received more showings and sold faster, not because they were better homes, but because agents were more motivated to show them. The buyer was never told this was happening. The buyer thought their agent was showing them the best available options. The agent was running a quiet optimization for their own paycheck. Meet Sandra. Sandra is 34, buying her first home in a mid-sized city, pre-approved for $380,000. Sandra hires a buyer's agent because everyone told her buyer's agents are free. The seller pays. Sandra spends 3 months looking at homes, makes 4 offers, loses 3, and finally closes on a $375,000 house. Sandra's agent collects $11,250 at closing. Sandra never sees that money leave or arrive. It just happens in the settlement statement she glanced at for 45 seconds before signing 47 other documents. What Sandra doesn't know is that 2 of the 3 houses she lost out on were actually listed at $15,000 to $20,000 less, but were shown to her fewer times because their buyer agent commission was 2% instead of 3%. Sandra got a house. She may not have gotten the best house for her budget, and nobody in the transaction was legally required to tell her why. Now here's where the story changes. Because in March 2024, the National Association of Realtors settled a landmark antitrust lawsuit, Sitzer v. NAR, for $418 million. The lawsuit alleged that the NAR's commission rules constituted illegal price fixing that artificially inflated real estate commissions for decades. The settlement, which took effect in August 2024, eliminated the rule requiring sellers to offer buyer agent compensation through the MLS. Buyers must now sign a written agreement with their agent before touring homes, specifying exactly what the agent will be paid and by whom. Seller agent and buyer agent compensation are now formally decoupled. In theory, this is one of the most significant consumer financial reforms in decades. In practice, the industry is doing everything in its power to make sure it doesn't feel like anything changed at all. Because here's the uncomfortable post-settlement reality. Sellers can still choose to offer buyer agent compensation voluntarily. Most sellers, advised by their listing agents, who have a professional and social relationship with buyer agents, are still offering it because they've been told that not offering it will reduce their buyer pool. Buyer agents are still largely collecting similar commissions. The written buyer agreement requirement has added transparency on paper, but has not yet meaningfully compressed fees in most markets. The infrastructure of habits, relationships, and incentives that produced the 6% commission for 50 years doesn't dissolve because of a settlement agreement. It adapts. The historical parallel is almost too clean. In 2005, the travel agent industry was generating billions in commissions from airlines, hotels, and cruise lines. Then online booking platforms made the information asymmetry disappear. Expedia, Kayak, and Google Flights did to travel agents what Zillow should have done to real estate agents, made the information free, the search instant, and the booking direct. Travel agent commissions collapsed. The industry shrank dramatically. The consumer paid less. Real estate, with the help of the NAR's MLS access rules and mandatory commission structures, managed to delay that same inevitable compression for 20 additional years. The settlement is the moment the delay ended. The compression is still arriving in slow motion. And here's the number that puts everything in context. Total residential real estate commissions in the United States amount to roughly $100 billion per year. That is $100 billion extracted annually from what is, for most Americans, the single largest financial transaction of their lifetime. The UK real estate market operates on roughly 1/5 that commission rate. If American commissions compress to UK levels, and there is no economic reason they couldn't, American home buyers and sellers would collectively retain an additional $70 to $80 billion per year. Not going to better service. Not going to innovation. Just staying in the pockets of the people who actually own the houses. So what can you actually do right now with this information? Negotiate the listing commission. It was always negotiable. Agents will tell you it wasn't, but it was. Post-settlement, sellers have even more explicit leverage. A 4 to 5% total commission is increasingly achievable in most markets without sacrificing meaningful service. Understand that buyer-agent compensation is now a negotiable term. You can offer to cover your own buyer agent, negotiate it into the purchase price, or find agents willing to work for a flat fee or hourly rate. These options exist and are growing. Use technology for what technology does better than humans. Zillow, Redfin, and similar platforms handle the search. What a good agent actually provides is negotiation skill, market knowledge, and and transaction management. Pay for those things specifically, not for a percentage of a number. Discount brokerages, Redfin, Homey, and others offer listing services for 1 to 1.5% versus the traditional 2.5 to 3%. The MLS access is identical. The marketing is largely identical. The difference is the fee structure. Read the buyer representation agreement before you sign it. Post-settlement, this document is mandatory, and it specifies exactly what your agent earns. If an agent won't negotiate what's in that agreement, find an agent who will. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The real estate commission system persisted not because it was efficient, not because it served consumers, and not because the work justified the price. It persisted because the NAR built one of the most effective lobbying and rule-making machines in American institutional history. It spent $84 million on federal lobbying in a single recent year. It cultivated relationships at the state legislative level to ensure that real estate licensing laws were written by and for real estate agents. And it maintained a cultural narrative: your home is your most important asset, you need professional guidance, this is too complex to navigate alone, that kept consumers deferential to a 6% number they never once questioned. The lawsuit cracked the foundation. What gets built on top of it is still being decided. And the people who benefit most from the old structure are the ones currently advising you on how the new structure works. So drop your take in the comments. Do you think the post-settlement real estate market will A, genuinely compress commissions over the next 5 years as competition increases and consumers get smarter? B, see surface-level changes while the industry finds new ways to maintain the same fee structures through different mechanisms? Or C, require a full technological disruption, a true Expedia moment, before commissions actually reflect the work involved? Because somewhere right now, someone is signing a listing agreement for 6%, and their agent just told them that's completely standard.